Hey you guys, it's John here today. It is a lovely overcast day. The high is only 103, and I say only 103 because it's been much hotter recently, but on the 10-day, I see that it's dropping into the 90s all the rest of the week, and the lows are dropping into the mid 70s, which is huge. It is September, the beginning of September, but with these temperatures dropping into the mid 70s, at least the lows are, it opens up a really nice planting window so we can start planting a ton. A lot of these flowers are heat-loving flowers, but some things just don't like the extreme heat, especially at night. I have found that the nighttime temperatures are a much better indicator on when to plant things than the daytime temperatures. The nighttime temperatures are really when the plant can take a break. A lot of plants do their photosynthesis, cellular respiration, all that science stuff is at night because it's the coolest part of the day. So if the temperatures, the nighttime temperatures never cool down at night, these plants have a hard time doing it, and they're basically choking to death, if you will. So it doesn't really matter as much about the high temperatures. It's really the low temperatures that are crucial in getting these plants to survive. So all of these plants that we have that we're planting in September are heat-loving plants because we still can get up into the 100-degree day in September, and really all fall can be upwards of 90s and 80s. Hopefully, we're hoping that it drops down into the 70s, but here are 12 plants that love the heat that you can plant in September here in zone at 9. And yes, even if you live in a colder zone, you can use a lot of these same plants. Just know that a lot of these are frost sensitive, so you either want to cover them if you do get a frost or bring them inside, or just treat them as an annual. First on this list are ornamental peppers. These come in so many different shapes and sizes. We absolutely love ornamental peppers. I feel like for fall especially, getting those like harvest vibes in the garden is absolutely crucial. So ornamental peppers are a great way to get kind of a fruiting element in your garden. We love growing a few different varieties. Last year we grew this one variety called Acapulco dark orange. It had these like orange and purple berries to them, and they were so pretty. Absolutely gorgeous. They were dwarfs, so they only got like, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches tall. We had them on the stair step bench, and those were absolutely lovely. We are growing them again this year, as well as the Acapulco dark purple. Let me show you guys them. This is the Acapulco dark purple. It is now just starting to flower a little bit more. Again, a lot of these plants don't like the extreme heat during the summertime, so they stop flowering. So now that it's cooled down just a little bit, they are resuming their flowering. But if you can see, the peppers are like a red and purple. I think that's gonna be so pretty with all of the other flowers that we're growing. I'll show you guys the rest of the peppers on the side of the house. We have a ton of them up here. These were the Acapulco purples and Acapulco dark orange, but we also have some other ones down here. This one's called Sedona Sunset. It's supposed to have a orange and yellow pepper to them. They are just now starting to flush out a little bit. And this one's called Oxen Red. It's supposed to have these tiny little red berries on them, but this foliage is just so beautiful. This beautiful purple foliage is gonna be great for fall. Now, we did start these pepper seeds back in like late spring and early summer, so I definitely would recommend just purchasing the plants if you are planting. A lot of these plants that I'm mentioning, it's a little late to start seeds. There's a few things that you can start from seed, and I'll show you guys what those are. We will be mixing in those ornamental peppers in this container garden. The bigger plants will go down here. I think we're gonna get rid of some of these celosias that are just fizzling out down here, and those are gonna be so pretty tucked in here. Number 2, we just made a video about these, but marigolds. Marigolds are, again, love the heat, and they come in so many beautiful colors, especially those like autumnal notes. We love doing like oranges and burgundies and reds and golds for the fall months just because it's perfect. It kind of matches the leaves that would fall. We don't get a lot of leaves falling, oh my gosh, here in Arizona. So planting some flowers that kind of represent the colors that would fall if we did have trees that were dropping is great. So these marigolds, we planted 2 different varieties. Let me show you guys. The first one are these beautiful African marigolds. Now, it is a dwarf variety, so this one's not gonna get super tall. Let's see if we can find a tag. Oh no, we don't have any tags. But this one only gets I think it's called like tahini, tazheen. Yeah, it's called like tazheen. So this variety only gets 10 to 12 inches tall, which is great. It's not going to overcome the container garden. And we planted some up in containers, and I'll show you guys them in a second, but they're not blooming. I just want to show you guys these big, beautiful blooms. This is called a African marigold with these gorgeous blooms. There's also some taller varieties. We love growing the cocoa gold ones. When we grew flowers to sell to florists, we did that in like a previous life. Watch the About Me video to learn a little bit more about that. But we used to grow and sell flowers to florists all the time, and I loved having these African marigolds. For Day of the Dead, it was just perfect to have those flowers. It's a flower that they use a lot in their like Hispanic culture, so it's great having those flowers available for them. These are some French marigolds. They have smaller blooms to them. And this one's called Durango. The series is Durango and the color is B. But look at that, it has like a rusty gold color to it. Absolutely perfect. So I'll show you guys some containers that we potted them in. They're just filling out now. So they're not really bulked. They don't really have a lot of bulk to them, but they are absolutely beautiful. I love using marigolds as a mum substitute because they have that same round flower. Okay, so these are the marigolds. These are all of the Durango Bs, and then this is the African one. We did pinch all the flowers off just to encourage the plant to bush out, but we put them really close together. There's 3 in this 8-inch pot, and there's 4 of them, 4 African ones in this 10-inch pot. So we really crammed them in there. We want them to grow in very quickly. We don't necessarily need the marigolds in those pots for a long period of time. We just want them to fill in their containers quickly so they can be an absolute beautiful icon in the container garden. We made a list so we wouldn't forget all the plants. So the next one is ornamental grasses and millets. I kind of clumped them together because they kind of give the same texture in the garden. We want something that gives a little bit of height, a little bit of drama in the garden, and both of them kind of do it. They both have different kind of looks to them, but I love incorporating both of them into the fall container garden because fall is all about textures. It's all about whimsical. It's all about, you know, just adding that that fall vibe and kind of that really pretty like harvest look to it. And a lot of the grasses and millets represent like wheat, end of season. They're really, really pretty, and they just add such movement into the garden, especially if like a wind comes. The grasses will move, and they're just really pretty. So I'll show you guys my favorite grass that I love using. And a lot of you guys have probably seen this grass before, but this is a purple fountain grass. Look how pretty this is. We already got this plant when it was blooming, but it makes these really pretty, like soft, like wheat style purple plumes that are just really pretty. I love having this in the garden, and even as like the leaves die on this plant just a little bit, maybe it got dried out a little bit, it looks really natural because it just adds to that fall vibe. Hi Renly, what's up? What's up? Okay, so then we have some millet back here. Let's see, this is the Copper Prince millet. We planted these way back in the beginning of the summer, and they are just starting to bloom. I'll show you guys a bigger one, but I love the strapping leaves we have here. Look how pretty that is. Just that coppery purple texture to it. And then the plumes, I'll show you guys the plumes. We have one on the other side of the garden. Kyle is helping us water some plants before we go over to some families, but let me show you guys that millet that's over here. Look how big this one is too. It's kind of fun. Look at that, isn't that pretty? Again, this one's called Copper Prince, but just had such drama in the garden. Like, look how beautiful of a focal piece that is. It's just absolutely beautiful. We had some Lisianthus in here. It was a Chateau, Blue Chateau Lisianthus in this pot, but we needed to switch out all the soil because it was probably 4 years old, so it was just clogging all the time. So we ripped out those Lisianthus and planted this beautiful millet in the beginning of July, and they have filled in so beautifully. And in the past, we have also done the Purple Majesty millet. That's another great one, especially if you're growing like a cut flower garden. The Purple Majesty gets a little bit taller, which is great, especially if you're doing more of like a, I don't know, like a pumpkin patch or just a garden plant. I think that taller one adds a little bit more height in the garden, which is still really pretty. And that one, the Purple Majesty millet, actually smells like maple syrup when it's blooming. It is so So incredible, and you can hang it upside down and dry it, and it still smells like maple syrup. So definitely grow the Purple Majesty millet. That one's a great one, especially if you love cut flowers. We grew the Copper Prince just because it's a little bit shorter, which is great for our container garden. Another great one is actually a foliage plant. This one's called Alternathera. Now, we typically have a lot of foliage between the celosias and the mahogany hibiscus and sweet potato vines that don't grow a lot of other foliage plants, but this one's great because it stays a little bit more compact, it doesn't get massive, and it adds a really pretty like dark purple touch to the garden. You know, sometimes I'm kind of sick of sweet potato vines by the end of the season, so I kind of use them very sparingly in our garden. So I love this Alternathera because it adds such a really pretty color. Let me show you guys. This one's called Purple Prince, and it gets these dark purple leaves. They will get darker as the season progresses. This one is probably the darkest one that we have. The under leaves are pretty dark, but it will get darker when the temperatures drop just a little bit. But they pair so well with the oranges, like the orange coxcombs and the other coxcombs we have down here, and then the other celosias that will be blooming. I think this dark purple just adds such a really pretty dimension to the rest of the plants. Alternathera is kind of like Coleus in the sense that they're really easy to propagate from cuttings. You can just take a clipping off of it, you can stick it in water, you can stick it in soil, and it propagates pretty easily, and that's why we love it. We actually grew this one from seed. The seeds were pretty easy to grow, and they grew pretty fast, so we love that. And we did start these seeds in June, so they have taken quite a bit to get established, but they've actually grown really quickly with all things considered. We had them on the side of our house like we did the marigolds and the peppers for most of the summer until they got established. We moved them out into the container garden. We have one plant in an 8-inch pot, and I think that's absolutely perfect. Okay, next on this list, we are clumping these two flowers together, but calibrachoa and petunias are in the morning glory family, and they kind of have similar style blooms to them, so they actually love to be planted in warmer temperatures. You know, we use them as a cool season flower, which means that we typically plant them in the fall, and we enjoy them all through the winter months and the spring months, but honestly, they bloom their best in the spring and in the fall when the temperatures, you know, the high temperatures are in between the 70s and the 90s. That's really when they bloom their best. So September is actually a great month for petunias and calibrachoas, specifically calibrachoas, because I feel like calibrachoas like a little bit more heat than the petunias would, although petunias still like to be in warmer weather. So usually we just grow calibrachoas in September, and then we start growing more petunias in October. But you can still grow petunias, they'll be just fine. We're just looking for things for the stair-step bench that are in smaller pots. Calibrachoa love to be in smaller containers, a little bit root bound. They'll be absolutely happy. So we like to go, again, for the darker, moodier colors. So last year we did the purple, I think it's labeled as like dark blue, but the purple calibrachoa and the orange calibrachoa looked so magical with the coxcombs and the ornamental peppers that were on the stair-step bench. They were just absolutely pretty. So I think we're gonna do the same exact thing this year with the orange and the purple, and maybe some other colors if I'm feeling inspired at the nurseries. We'll mix it up just a little bit. But calibrachoas and petunias are definitely a must grow in September. The next one on this list is no surprise to you guys, but celosias are another great flower that you can plant in your September garden. You know, celosias love the heat just like everything else. But again, these come in so many autumnal colors, from reds to oranges to yellows to even like a purpley pink color, which can be really cute for summertime. We have a ton of dwarf ones and taller ones. I'll kind of give you guys a little bit of a glimpse of what we have here. So we have some shorter varieties on our stair-step bench. This one's a little bit older, but this is a kimono celosia. It's a dwarf style celosia with these beautiful plumes to them. Do you guys see that? That's kind of what they look like at more of like a prime stage. They're really, really pretty. We planted a succession of them because it's really good to plant successions of celosia, especially in hot climates. Our growing season is so long that you're gonna want to succession plant your celosia. But we have these beautiful orange ones. Do you guys see that? They are so pretty. Again, this is a kimono orange celosia. We also have some, Cosmo celosia. This one's called Cosmo Cherry, just more of like a wheat style celosia, but we have tons of other celosia. This is a dragon's breath celosia that is not yet blooming. If I were to get this in the garden centers, I'd probably get like a 1-gallon plant. You'll probably see them maybe at big box stores in the next couple weeks, maybe month or so, but this one's a really pretty one to add to your garden. We also have some really pretty purple ones over here. This one's a purple intense celosia. That's just so pretty. Look at that dark moody color. And then we have some coxcomb celosias. Coxcombs are all in the celosia family. Look at that. This one's a twisted orange coxcomb. We have a Dracula coxcomb down here. Look at that. And the leaves on these coxcombs are so pretty as well. And then we have a row of dwarf coxcombs down here. We definitely have the most amount of celosias out of any other flower because, you know, they're so versatile. They come in so many different shapes and forms that they're just so pretty in the fall garden. If you were to get your celosias at the garden centers, I definitely would probably get a bigger plant, especially if you live in a climate a little bit colder, because they're not going to put on a ton of growth once it starts cooling down into the 50s at night. So definitely pick out a plant that's a little bit more sizable so you can enjoy it all season long until your frost. They actually bloom up into our frost, which usually is in, gosh, I want to say like mid-December. Sometimes we don't see our frost until the beginning of the year, but all of these celosias, most of them were planted in the end of July, not July, the end of June. So they got established all summer long so they could bloom in the fall time. But you can still pick them up at the nurseries. You're still gonna get a really good show. Just pick up a slightly bigger plant than you normally would if you're planting it earlier in the year. Zinnias are another great flower. We have a ton of zinnias in our garden. We grow lots of zinnias every single year because one, they're just really easy to grow from seed and they come in so many pretty colors. Now, it is a little bit late to grow them from seed, especially if you live in a cooler climate, but you definitely could, and you might get a few blooms towards the end of November. But if you have the option to pick up zinnia plants at your local nursery, I definitely would. Even in like a 6-pack, they should grow in fast enough so you can get a really good show. You know, in the fall time, things are dropping, temperatures are dropping, so things just don't grow nearly as quickly. So if you planted zinnias in September, they could fill in a little bit and still put on a really good show in October and maybe early November for you. Now, I would pick the shorter varieties, especially if you're growing in a container. The profusions are a great double variety with smaller button flowers that really give you a really nice show. In our container garden, we love growing the Magellan and the Dream Month series for those bigger blooms with those beautiful, beautiful petals. This one is called Magellan Salmon, and look at that, you guys. Just beautiful double zinnia blooms. Look at that. Oh, just so pretty on a compact plant. Now, this has been blooming for us for about a month now. We planted this at the end of June, and they've been blooming since the beginning of August, and they are so pretty, you guys. I just love this color, this blushy salmon pinky color. It's so pretty, but they come in a lot of colors, but we are impartial to this particular color. And we do succession plant them, so we planted this one about a month after the other one, and this is gonna give us some nice blooms all the way through fall. Okay, this next one you can actually start from seed if you wanted to, but these are sunflowers. Most sunflowers are pretty quick to bloom, usually around 60 days from seed to bloom. We loved growing the pro-cut varieties when we were growing for cut flowers. Pro-cut means that these flowers are not going to produce pollen and they're not going to drop and make a mess when you're using those cut flowers inside. This was great because as a florist, as a, someone who wants flowers on their kitchen table, they don't really want a messy flower. So growing the pollinous ones are great for that reason. We loved growing the white ones. The white light was really pretty. It kind of has like more of like a creamy center. Definitely a really unique sunflower that you really can't find anywhere else. I also loved the dark night one with those white petals with that black center. It kind of gave you that like harvest moon vibes with like the white and the black. Super pretty. I loved pairing them with like coxcombs and other celosias for a really pretty fall effect. And now you can definitely grow any type of sunflower you would like. They really all grow the same way. We used to grow a lot of dwarf varieties, like shorter ones. We loved to plant Junior. It's a short variety in containers to have really pretty sunflowers in our container garden throughout the fall months. We didn't do it this year mainly because sunflowers typically bloom for like 2 to 3 weeks, so it doesn't have the longest bloom period, but they're just so spectacular and iconic to have in the garden. You can also plant branching varieties that will bloom a lot longer than single stem ones. One of our favorite branching varieties was actually called Moulin Rouge. It is really pretty. It has more of like a red autumnal color to it, but the backing of the petals was so pretty with those stripes on it. They were so pretty. So a branching one is gonna give you a lot more blooms. It's gonna branch out. They're not gonna be as great as cut flowers because the stems aren't as straight, but they're still gonna put on a really pretty show in the garden. The next one is a shade plant. The next three are actually shade plants, but this one is a Coleus plant. Now, Coleus are really grown for their foliage. They make such gorgeous leaves on their plants, and they're absolutely beautiful. They can take a little bit more shade, a lot more shade actually, than a traditional flowering plant would. So we love planting these in places that don't get enough sunlight to really sustain more flowers. Obviously, they're shade flowers, but there's not nearly as many as sunflowers. So Coleus, sun-loving flowers, I should say. So Coleus are a great option, mainly because the foliage has really pretty like autumnal vibes. We are growing some darker ones that are kind of more like burgundy, one called Redhead that is absolutely beautiful. We're also growing another one called Saint Tropez, or I'll put the name of it on the screen and then the picture of the plant, because it has these like serrated leaves to them that will branch out and be absolutely gorgeous in the garden. Kind of more of those spooky season fall vibes to them. In the spring, we grow a lot more flowering plants. In the fall, we do a lot more foliage, just because it's more like, I don't know, seasonally appropriate, because fall is all about foliage. So we're growing a lot of Coleus this year just because they're really, really pretty. And again, Coleus are really easy to propagate. You can literally just take a clipping of it, stick it in the ground, and it should root out for you pretty quickly. Coleus do not like the colder weather, so just be aware of that. They are fairly frost sensitive, so you know, we love to enjoy them in September, October, November, early December. Sometimes we'll just take cuttings of them in December, bring them inside, root new plants, and then bring them back outside towards the end of February or March after our last frost, just to kind of repeat that plant cycle in our garden. The next shade-loving plant are impatiens. Now, these ones typically like a little bit more humidity. They don't love the super intense dry heat, so that's why I usually plant them towards the end of the summer when it's cooling down just a little bit, but these plants still do love the heat. So we love planting the like salmon ones. We can even do like the purple ones. I love planting purple and salmon. In the fall, they kind of give more of that moody fall foliage, but you could also plant New Guinea impatiens. These have more of like a serrated leaf to them, a little bit bigger bloom, and these do great in a little bit more sunlight than a traditional impatient, but they still do great in the shade. So we love planting impatiens with our Coleus. We usually do like reds and oranges for a more autumnal color. And the next shade plant is a begonia. We love, love, love begonias. There's lots of different types of begonias, but we usually grow just the traditional ones that you can find at any nursery. The cocktail, I think they're called cocktail begonias, but they come in red with like a dark leaf to them. Those are really, really cool because the burgundy leaf, the dark brown reddish leaf, is a great textural element in the fall time, and red is just a great flower for the fall. The other colors that they come in is like rose, pink, and white, and they're a little more spring. Like they're a little bit more spring toned to me, so I usually steer away from them in the fall. So we usually just grow the dark leaf red. We'll even grow like the green leaf red ones if we can put our hands on, or if we can find them, but the darker ones are usually best for fall, in my opinion. We've also grown a lot of dragon wing begonias. Again, in the fall, we usually grow more red ones. These ones kind of have more of a, I don't know, like an oval shaped leaf to them, and they can kind of dangle outside of a pot and drape kind of more of like a dragon, if you will. But these are really cool. If you want more of like a statement begonia, the dragon wing begonia is your begonia. And I haven't really grown like tuberose begonias too much, mainly because I haven't been able to find them at the nursery, and I haven't started them in the grow room early enough. So maybe if I can't find them at the nursery this year, I will definitely try them in the springtime and maybe try them again in the summertime to see if I can time them right to grow them in the fall. But I really haven't grown a lot of them in general. You know, I think the tuberose begonia is like a little bit more humidity than a traditional begonia, but you know, we still have to experiment a little bit more with them. I've only grown them probably twice, and I've killed most of them. So we're gonna give her one more shot. Last but not least on this list, I'm including this because I've grown it in September before with some luck, but dahlias are another great option. This spring, we grew a dahlia variety called Miss Mandy. It was a dwarf like it wasn't like super dwarf, but it was a shorter variety. Oh my gosh, you guys, the colors on it were so pretty, just that peachy coral realness. It was absolutely gorgeous. But this year we're gonna try growing dahlias again. These are more Goldilocks flowers, so they don't like the heat, they don't like the cold. They really like that fall in between period. So I think planting them in September, we're gonna get them established to a sizable plant by maybe like mid-October. So hopefully they start to bloom for us towards the end of October through like into Thanksgiving. That would be really fun. We're growing a shorter variety. It's an orange variety. I'll leave the name of the variety I'm growing on the springtime, or I will leave the name of the variety that I'm growing on the screen. It's a shorter variety because I have found that shorter varieties typically bloom sooner. So it's not like a cut flower variety, but I think this one's gonna be great in the container garden for the fall. That is it for the list of fall flowers that we are planting in September. Now, we are still gonna grow a lot of flowers indoors right now to plant out maybe in October and November. That will be our cool season flowers that can take the cold, and then those will bloom in the springtime. But the flowers that we're planting in September are the ones that will kind of give us an instant show and start growing and blooming right away for us. The summer, we've had a lot of things die and, you know, get pruned back. So this is a great time to kind of refresh the garden with a few plants, get things in the ground, and then plant more things as the weather continues to cool down this fall. Anyways, you guys, I hope this video was informative. Again, we are in Zone 9B in Arizona. This might differ from other Zone 9Bs, so just keep that in mind. We are still very hot in the fall, so all of these flowers can take all the heat that we have in the fall months. So anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I will leave the links for all of our favorite seeds. We will have our ranunculus and anemone corm sale this fall, starting in mid-September. We will also have live plants available to ship to your doorstep. So thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video.